Hello everyone! Today we will be educating you on big film breakthroughs in the 1920s, how the culture back then affected it, and how much the industry developed from 1920 to 1929. In the beginning of the 1920s was when the industry was really booming. They would produce an average of 800 feature films annually. Crazy, right? The way everything was filmed is very well known. There was no sound, it was black and white, and the motions also seemed to be sped up and choppy. This was obviously due to their equipment. The camera they were using had to be cranked, which explains the speed. In the early 1920s, not a lot of people had TVs. Therefore, they would use projectors the most. Projectors back then played things faster than normally, so they had to make the speed of the footage faster. Movies would be difficult to make without studios. The most well-known studios were created during the 20s. Warner Brothers, 1923, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, 1924, and the first one, Paramount, 1920. Now, these went to create groundbreaking films still known today, as well as the first horror movie, which is this one, that involves the first on-film story of a vampire. Now, this is one of the first cartoons made in the 1920s, and this is very well known. It's called Steamboat Willie. This cartoon's by, you guessed it, Disney. This next cartoon is also by Disney, and it came shortly after Steamboat Willie. It's a children's cartoon, and in the beginning it seems very innocent. It's just Minnie and Mickey ride an airplane, and as it progresses, Mickey, he gets a little pushy. And in the early 1920s, this thing wasn't an odd or rare thing to see. You'll see in a little bit. Now, movies would be nothing without their stars. There were a great number of stars, and if we talked about all of them, you'd be watching more than an hour-long movie, and you don't want to do that. So we just chose 3 of the most well-known, starting with the myth, the legend, Charlie Chaplin. This man was comedy gold during this time period. Not only that, he was an actor, director, screenwriter, producer, composer, and editor. This man has a career spanning 75 years, but his big break was during the 20s. He became comedically famous through his character Little Tramp. He had countless movies. Now this clip I'm about to show right here, I chose this because that's actually him blindfolded and skating. So you could just add that to the list of his countless talents. I mean, honestly, Beyonce who? Step up your game. I also chose this clip because he's not only roller skating blindfold, but he's also roller skating blindfold next to a long drop-off. A real long drop-off. Now, it's not actually staircase though. What looks like staircase to a floor below is actually a painting on glass placed in front of the camera, perfectly aligned. But all in all, he was just a true legend. Not only a true legend, but also a pure genius, one of a kind and worshipped by all. Never can be replaced. Huh, psych! Groucho Marx here was also a well-known and worshipped comedian. He was known for his quick wit and widely known as the best comedian. That's right, Chaplin, you're now trash compared to Groucho. Stars in this time period seemed to be able to do anything because this man's mediums were filming, acting, radio, and music. He also had a great number of films, mostly with the iconic group, the Marx Brothers. He then went on to pursue a solo career, which was quite successful. He went on to be the host of the game show named You Bet Your Life, and then went on to create many other shows of his own, which those were made outside of the 20s, so we're just gonna ignore those. His group of brothers weren't the only thing iconic about this man. His look was also iconic. He was the one that created these crazy glasses that you see right here. Listen. Groucho, stop bullying Chaplin! This means something I'm gonna... Okay, true, but besides the point, oh, Chaplin has had enough. He's going in for the kill. Come on, Chaplin. Never mind. It's an old-time movie. It takes them forever to throw a punch. So cutting to a real picture of Groucho Marx. Voila! Now changing from comedy to the heartthrob, the sex symbol of the 1920s, Rudolph Valentino, or the Latin lover. Now, Rudolph Valentino was an Italian-born American actor who starred in very famous silent films, including The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, The Sheik, Blood and Sand, the most famous, The Eagle, and The Son of the Sheik. In 1926 was one of the first times society dealt with a death of a famous loved movie star. Rudolph died at age 31, and ulcers were the cause. Famous last words were, "Don't worry, Chief, I'll be alright." His death caused mass hysteria among his female fans. A lot of cases of suicide were documented after this event. This further propelled him into iconic status. Now, through all these videos and photos and info I have shared, you might have noticed that not a whole lot of females were in films. That is because females were mostly put in the films to fill space or to look pretty or to be co-stars, but that's further into the 20s. Women's rights in the early 20s weren't all quite there. In 1923 was really when women were granted more rights, like being in bigger roles back in this time period. As you see in this case right here, she is put there to, in this small scene, to cry, to look pretty, and then to literally run off in the sunset with Chaplin here. Here's another small scene of how women were used in films. They were mostly used in comedy films in aggressive acts. For example, Chaplin and his boss are kicking each other, and Chaplin is using his dance partner as a human shield. Don't get me wrong, I found this scene entertaining and funny. It's very well known as well. This scene is also another example of the whole aggressive comedy with women. There's a lot of them. Moving on to a big cultural-based offensive film technique. What do you notice in this clip? Yes, blackface. Because in 1920s, we wore ass. Women were allowed a little bit of screen time, while African Americans were allowed none in the early 20s. Directors then felt the need to put their actors in blackface. Performers portrayed African American characters using burnt cork to blacken their skin. Wearing tattered clothes, the performances mocked black behavior, playing racial stereotypes for laughs. In this clip, as you notice, the two actors are talking. That's because when this film was invented, 1927, that's when sound in film was created, because the equipment was upgraded. Not only that, females started getting bigger roles and musicals were created, like Phantom of the Opera in 1925. Blackface, on the other hand, moved to children's cartoons. Blackface continued until the late 19th century. This is really entertaining. Come on, Papa. Okay, yeah, Travis, Clayton, can you not terrorize the camera, please? Just, we don't want to see your booty. No. Okay, go. Keep going to the middle, to the middle, to the middle, to the middle. Keep going. Stop. Now, Travis, I want you to come. Keep going. Stop. Now back up a little bit. Okay, good. Back up a little bit more. Oh, it's... Woo! Okay. Girls find you hot. You're a hottie. With a body. He's the hottie. Everyone found him so attractive. No, I'm not gonna zoom in. Never mind. Symbol of the 20s. All the women crowded around him and said, "Have my babies." And he was... Well, okay, take off the hat. Did you do your hat trick? And then you're like, hey, I'm awesome too. And then you're gonna look at the camera, Travis, and you're gonna be like, so here's what look, this is what you're gonna be like. And then you're gonna be it's a voiceover. Charlie Chaplin. Woo! Look at Clayton. Oh, he's Charlie Chaplin. Look at him go. Whoa. Nice dapper coat. Wiping it off. Oh, smile. Face. Woo. Accepting the compliment. Performers portrayed African American characters using burnt cork. Dang it! Burnt cork. Rudolph fella. What the heck?